and Chang, and our guest today is Chris Jeffery, Chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce, Vietnam. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much indeed, and a pleasure to be joining you from Hanoi.
Okay, Chris, can you give us a quick overview of Britcham Vietnam and your role in engaging the key stakeholders?
Yeah, Britcham Vietnam started over 20 years ago as the British Business Group Vietnam. And we were the first licensed international chamber of commerce in the country. And over that time, we've really developed our offering and what we deliver to the stakeholders, both here in Vietnam and the UK. And we really have three pillars. One is as a traditional chamber of commerce. So we support British business here in Vietnam and also support networking and so forth. Within that, we also do a lot of charity work. So Britcham has for 20 years been very heavily involved in charity work, raising money for Vietnamese charities across the country. The second is really advocacy, where we are members of the Vietnam Business Forum, which is the international body that talks to the Vietnamese government, and we're board members on there. And also we have high-level interaction between British business here in the embassy and the consulate general, as well as UK government as well. And the third element is really the business centre, which is where we do work for the government, but also British companies and Vietnamese companies that want to increase business, want to develop trade links between the two countries. So in all, we have over 500 members, ranging from the big multinationals all the way through to sole traders, entrepreneurs, and SMEs.
So because of the pandemic, most businesses are. So how are your members pivoting, or how are they getting back onto their feet?
I think Vietnam has been exceptionally lucky through the government actions and how they've dealt with the pandemic. Business here in Vietnam has really been affected, probably one of the least affected across the whole world. Obviously, though, Vietnam is part of a global business environment in terms of tourism and so forth. So tourism is still hit. There is obviously no international tourism. So yes, the sector of five-star hotels and attracting international visitors has stopped. But to a certain extent, that's been made up by an increase in domestic tourism. So more and more Vietnamese are holidaying at home or taking advantage of it. The other key aspect, I suppose, is about supply chain. And even though the supply chain business in Vietnam is up and running and has been throughout, obviously supply chain requires customers at the end. And through the global downturn, where obviously there is less demand. So especially in areas such as apparel and so forth, there have been quite heavy consequences. But in terms of British business here, it's really about doing the business and continuing to grow within Vietnam, continuing to interact with our partners in the UK and worldwide. And in terms of the chamber, what we're doing is, like everyone else and like this talk, is via Zoom, is via Teams. So we are still maintaining the push for British companies to be interested in and supporting them in their movement to Vietnam. Obviously, one of the big problems is investment, because people like to visit before they invest. And so there has been a slowdown in terms of FDI and big investment to take here. But we're still very confident that post opening of borders, that the preparation work will have been done and the knowledge gained to enable people to take advantage in as shorter period as possible.
So are there any new initiatives being put forth from your members to the Vietnam government to support more UK investments?
Yes, there are. We work very closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the ambassador in the UK, as well as the Ministry of Planning and Investment. I think the key thing that the Vietnamese government are interested in is about high value investment. It's not about the cheap manufacturing. Vietnam sees itself as a 4IR economy and is looking for investment and partners in those fields. And obviously the UK is very well placed for that development. If you look at the areas where the UK has a strong position, it's finance, it's legal, it's education, and it's also renewable energy. And obviously Vietnam has a very long coastline, and so there's a lot of opportunity there. And then IT, in terms of adding value to the IT. So really about developing the sector here. So it's not just programming for people, but owning the programs and developing the programs and becoming a major player. So there's a lot of activities that are still going on and a lot of development, which is also moving forward. Not as fast as we would like, but it is moving on.
So Chris, which are the major sectors, British investments in Vietnam?
I think traditionally it's been financial, professional services, insurance, everything like that. The other one, which is a major, is education. And in fact, Vietnamese students can undertake kindergarten all the way through to PhD and get British qualifications without leaving the country. So there's been a sustained investment in that. Vietnamese value education greatly, and they value British education as well. I think one of the other areas within the education sector is the professional certification. So for example, accountancy, management, about upskilling. And it comes back to the point that Vietnam is entering into this next stage of growth development. And the Vietnamese people and workers are really after developing their skill set. And what we've seen here in Vietnam is that during the pandemic, people have really knuckled down and used the opportunity through the pandemic to increase their skill set and make them more competitive across the whole of the ASEAN sector. And again, the other area would be renewable energy. Again, Vietnam has relied heavily on coal. It is looking to really develop a renewable energy element to that mixture, and with wind, with solar, and so forth. They're actually starting that journey really quite well. And like most things in this country, when it starts, it will run and run and run, and it will work.
So who are the key UK investors?
Well, I think that there are a number of investors. Obviously, the banks, Standard Chartered, HSBC, the law firms, the accountancy firms such as PwC, KPMG, but also there's companies such as Shire Oak, who are renewable energy, enterprise energy. So again, people are moving into that sector. And then the Vietnam is a great market for products, high value luxury products. So Land Rover, Range Rover, the fashion brands, and then looking at education. Obviously, you've got Oxford and Cambridge A-levels. You've got professional qualifications such as ICAEW, ACCA, universities who have partnerships here in Vietnam, such as Staffordshire and the University of London, who have a partnership with BUV, British University Vietnam, which is my day job.
Chris, but now when it comes to talent hiring, there's always challenges and obstacles. Can you share on this area with us?
I think, yes, traditionally, Vietnam and the students who graduate have lacked the skill sets that international companies are after. So the creative thinking, problem solving, working in teams, cross-cultural understanding, and so forth. The one thing that is not a major issue is language. The Vietnamese parents and students really value education and language. And so what we've seen over the last 10 years is even more of an uptake in language and people starting from a very young age. And the desired language is English, followed by Korean and Japanese, two major investors here in Vietnam. But every Saturday, if I pass an English center at 11 a.m., I will be amazed at the hordes of 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds.
Amazing.
And so that bodes very well for the future, because what you're going to have is people whose second language is quite literally English. And so that supports British, but also international investment here. The education sector does have challenges. And as I said, that's really about giving students the skill set that international businesses want. And that is, to a certain extent, lacking, but is being developed slowly and will come to fruition soon. Vietnamese students also have the knack of doing it on their own, even if it's not within part of the formal education system. So I would say it is developing. It is still a challenge, but it's a challenge that firms can quite easily overcome.
So what has the Vietnam government been doing to actually address this? Are there any collaborations on to solve this?
Yes, there are. I mean, through the language, the Vietnamese government has been working with the British Embassy and the British Council on really pushing English as a second language and ensuring that students in school are taught in English. Also in state schools here in Hanoi, the government has allowed a couple of very high profile state schools to run a parallel program. So students in year 10, 11 and 12 study the Vietnamese curriculum, but they can also study A-levels as well. So students leave with not only the knowledge of their home country, but the international qualification, and also that skill set that A-levels brings in learning. So that's happening now, and it's the third year it's been running. So it's developing year on year. So the government are working on it. The government obviously are working on upskilling within universities and schools as well, but that's an ongoing issue that will need to be pushed further.
So besides this, what other constraints UK companies are actually facing when operating in Vietnam?
I think the biggest constraint is actually not understanding Vietnam.
Oh,
okay. So it's one of those things that...
Is it in terms of culture?
Many things. I will tell you a story. From the education sector, I used to work in London before I came to Vietnam. My grey hair was got in London and not in Vietnam.
Okay.
So the reality is Vietnam is a very open economy. It's a very welcoming economy, and the government welcomes sound, high-value investment. The challenge is that the bureaucracy, but not understanding exactly what is going on, and that can cause frustration. So I think really not knowing and not understanding, and really having an outdated view of Vietnam in terms of, if any view of Vietnam. So it's not an easy country, it's not Commonwealth. English isn't the second language or the native language. So it is a challenge, but it's actually not that hard to overcome. And where you think you have a growing middle class, you have a population of 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
From north to south is the same as flying from London to Rome. It's a massive country. It's massive opportunity. Britain is well respected, and they are very open to British investment. So it's about really telling that story and telling people the actuality of doing business here and the opportunities, but also I think being honest about the frustrations as well, because like everywhere in the world, there are always frustrations. It's about how you understand those and how you overcome those. And that's really what Britcham is all about, because we're there to support the members, to make that transition and entry as easy as possible.
So I just want to touch lightly on the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic, partnership. So, I mean, the agreement was signed recently. I mean, and it's also seen as a boost for trade. So, in your opinion, how will the region be impacted?
I think the region will be impacted without doubt. I think for British companies, the biggest issue is going to be the free trade agreement between Britain and Vietnam. And that's going to obviously be more complex, more in-depth, because it's two countries talking to each other rather than a regional negotiation and compromise. So for us here in Vietnam, we are part of the European Union Free Trade Agreement with Vietnam, and that has come into effect this year. We're still part of it. And the government and the ministries of Department of International Trade and Ministry of Industry and Trade here are coming to the conclusion of a deal between Britain and Vietnam, obviously based very heavily on the European Free Trade Agreement. But that entity will be much more beneficial for British companies to enter Vietnam over a period of years, obviously, as it will be introduced step by step. That will then hopefully form a basis that companies can use Vietnam as a regional base. So it is going to have an impact, but much bigger impact for us will be the free trade agreement when it is signed, not if it's signed, but when.
So where are the opportunities then, Chris?
Well, the opportunities are obviously amongst areas such as automobiles in the long term, that will be over 7 years, high value drinks business, so obviously whiskey, spirits business, as well as food and technology and so forth. Plus also manufacturing, because with a free trade agreement, the movement of finished product back to the UK will be easier as well. So there are a number of different areas that will benefit. And again, I think that's what's really quite exciting about it, that it is quite a comprehensive deal, and it enables not just one sector to benefit, but a number of sectors. And vice versa, in terms of Vietnam as a potential source for British as well. And we are supporting Vietnamese businesses doing that as well. If you look at some of the biggest exports, seafood, coffee, nuts, rice, there are huge amounts of product which can be exported to the UK, and we see a growth in that as free trade markets develop. So
Chris, maybe as a final question, can you maybe share with us what is the outlook for 2021 for Britcham Vietnam?
Britcham Vietnam, positive,
Yes.
very positive. I think we kind of, I'd like to associate ourselves with the GDP of Vietnam, where obviously every country in the world has suffered a slowdown. Britcham has as well, because we haven't had the number of missions in the interest of people coming in. But Vietnam's GDP year on year will be positive. And I think Britcham Vietnam will also be positive in that sense. So not as high as we would like, but also positive. And I think in today's global economy, with what's happened over the last year, a positive outcome is a fantastic outcome. And that's what we've got here in Vietnam and Britcham as well. So we hope lots more British companies will come to Vietnam, and we hope lots more British companies will come and join Britcham as well.
Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to give your views. I've been speaking to Christopher Jeffery, Chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce, Vietnam. For more business and technology conversations,